So welcome everyone. We are going to begin the seminar. This seminar is the first seminar of an initiative of Tourism Management and Computing Technologies International Conference that will be held in Portimão between the 2nd and the 7th of November of this year. During the next months, we will have initiatives and seminars like this with our partners of the conference. And just to explain you a little bit the structure of this seminar, we are going to begin with the presentation of our speaker today, that is the Vice President of Paperpal, Ms. NOLITA COELHO. She is specialized in developing products and technology with academia. She has extensive experience in this regard. Her background is in economics, business management, and product management, and user experience. And the main goal and the main ambition is always to overcome the language barrier in terms of communications regarding research ideas and tools. This session will be structured in this form. We will have during the session open link so the participants may insert their questions. We will have more or less 35 minutes of presentation. Then we will have some time for the Q&A with NOLITA, and at the end of the session, the participants have the opportunity to send us through the formula the questions that they want to see answered, and we will do our best to address to NOLITA in order to each participant have a specific answer to some questions that may surge. Therefore, I will invite you to welcome with me the Vice President of Paperpal, NOLITA. Thank you, NOLITA. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Karimo, and thank you to everyone who's taken the time to join today. I see some of you are probably
your sound is not on, NOLITA, sorry.
okay.
It's on.
Okay, great. My speaking rights were taken away. Great. Okay.
No,
thanks, Karimo, and keep it short. I was just thanking everyone for coming in this morning. I think we're already 10 minutes in, so I'll probably just start sharing my screen and jump straight into it. I'm NOLITA, as Karimo introduced me, and I head up the Paperpal product from Cactus Communications. And what I'll look to do today is to give you a little bit of a glimpse into why we do what we do, and specifically in the context of, all of you have gathered from the research community in the field of tourism and hospitality. And we look into how Paperpal can potentially ease some of your burdens in the writing and publication process. And as Karimo mentioned, at the end of today's session, we will take questions. The recording will be shared, so in case the screen isn't clear or the audio isn't clear, you can always just go back to the recording, so don't worry about that. And even if we don't have time for all your questions, I'm happy to take them later. And you may be wondering as I go through the demo that, can we really access the product? So as part of our tie-up with Karimo and team, you'll also receive, a 7-day full premium and prime access to Paperpal to try it out. So I'll share that at the end so that you could pay attention now and then maybe jump onto that later. Okay, I think with that, let's take it ahead. Karimo, can you confirm that you can see my screen in presentation mode?
Not yet in presentation mode, but we are seeing the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Has it moved into presentation mode?
Not yet, Nolita.
Okay. Can you confirm now? Is the slide changing?
No, it's not changing.
Oh, okay.
The image is free, Nolita, in freeze mode.
Penso que a Nolita perdeu o sinal, não? Karim?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, everyone. We are experiencing a technical issue. We will resume shortly. Thank you. So we are back.
Okay.
Nolita? Okay. Please share
Yes.
the presentation. I think was a technical problem. It's overcome now.
Okay. Unfortunately, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, it's still not loading for me.
Mm-hmm.
And never had this trouble before.
It is possible to share, Nolita. Yes, you have the option.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
No, no problem. No problem. Technical
Didn't
issues
happen.
may happen.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay.
Yes. Now we are seeing. Perfect.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep everyone waiting, and I'm really sorry for this. They say Murphy's Law, right?
No
Okay. So let's go into a little bit of, the topic that we're here to talk about today, that is, how can you polish your research manuscript, right, in minutes, and basically just strengthen your manuscript when it comes into the finish line. So, why did we really get into this? Because, there's a good analogy someone explained to me. One, imagine applying for a job, submitting your CV to a company, not being able to submit it to anyone else, and the company is not obligated to tell you when they're going to get back to you, right? So just the entire journal process is very, unfair, and there's a lot of uncertainties around that, and it creates a lot of anxiety, I think, for everyone involved. And unfortunately, everyone does face rejection from time to time. So whether you're a Nobel laureate or, just a first-time author, it doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate. Everyone does. And sometimes it is for issues that can be easily avoided. And, we've all encountered cases where a journal might get back and say, hey, please go through the instructions. You've not, followed these requirements, and resubmit. And you've lost a couple of weeks or a couple of months, over there. We talked about language, and, we hold that very close to our heart, and Cactus, because we're placed globally, but we started 23 years ago. And what we realized was, science, and a lot of the ideas that people brought forward were great, but it was language that was really the barrier. And I think that's true, especially true. And as I see the audience list today here as well, is that, 75% of the world's research is published in English, but you still have just about 70 to 20% that speaks English natively. So just even thinking of framing your thoughts, or being able to, interact with a peer reviewer, forget about just writing the paper, all of these, right, present challenges. And that's, really pushed us to do more. And it can result in, comments like these that can really discourage, especially early career authors who are figuring out that these are the ways of the world, unfortunately. But very often, you get rejections like these, which is, it didn't match the scope, very broad, very general, even though you see the papers match with this. There's something more happening there. And if you break it down, you look at the iceberg and you sort of break it down. Why do rejections really happen? As we said, one is, just the semantics of the language, the grammar, punctuation, conventions, writing. But then, is it really engaging? Is the prose engaging? Does it tell a story? Today, AI can help us do that. But as we start to use it, you have problems around, did you accidentally plagiarize? Did the AI sort of overtake the writing and your voice was really hidden? Have you disclosed AI? Because let's assume there is an AI fingerprint and most journals are okay with AI being used to write. But have you disclosed AI? Let's get deeper. Assume all of these things are in place. Have you really met the journal requirements, whether it's a scope match, whether it's, the length of the abstract, certain disclosures that are required, any of those things. And then, of course, assuming you get through all of these hurdles, you come into the meat of it, right? Was the literature review sound? Was it based on, recent literature, extensive reviews? Was there rigor in the methodology of your study? Is it just too qualitative? Is the sample size, too selective, convenient? And then really novelty, right? Everyone's heard things like chasing trends. It doesn't really contribute to theory, all of this. Now, if you break down all of this, what I'm hoping to demonstrate to you today is there are various features within Paperpal that can help you, if not entirely avoid it, because the science is eventually yours, but actually just work through these and ensure you have a much stronger manuscript, or a very effective way to engage, right, throughout the process with whatever it is that you might be writing, even beyond a manuscript. And as I mentioned, Paperpal is a product of Cactus Communications. And our history goes back 23 years, where we started a human expert services by the brand Editage. And this is available globally. We work predominantly with authors in non-native speaking countries, where human experts help them with all aspects of their paper, right from scientific editing to basic proofreading, to even, potentially in some cases helping with framing the paper and journal submission. What we did is we took a lot of that expertise and those experts, and they still participate in the process, and we've created Paperpal on the back of that expertise. So that's where our core comes in from, our understanding of over 1,300 fields of study. And today, Paperpal also offers our services, across major journals where before submission, authors are encouraged to also screen their manuscript using Paperpal. But today we'll talk about the product that is available to authors directly to subscribe and use that can actually get you to that finish line, in a much stronger position. And what does that look like? Paperpal, in that sense, as I mentioned, it evolved from this need to, not just help you get to the finish line well, but right from the beginning, right? When you shortlisted those papers you're reading, how can you read more effectively? How can you search for papers more effectively using Q&A with AI? We also look at then how do you take all of that insight? How do you synthesize it into the structure of your paper, build an outline, and then essentially move into, most tedious aspect, right? Citing it correctly in the right format, and then maintaining those citations, right, through the entire process. And then, of course, as we said, the checking and the evaluation process, which we'll cut across, sort of many different aspects. What underlies the entire product is our very strong focus on security and compliance, because we work with, professional organizations. We work with researchers that demand confidentiality with their work. We have, absolutely, complete and no training on, user data or any of the data that goes into our systems. In addition to that, we have all of the compliances various industries require, including the AI ISO certification, HIPAA certifications, and we're available on multiple platforms. For today's session, we will focus predominantly on these two aspects that I've colored out in yellow. But I will share a recording so that you can get, a sense of the entire product as well. But I'll focus on this and really kind of help you figure out how you can, get through the grievance of rejection the next time, make that landing a little softer and less hurtful. So great. With that, I will actually move to the product and show you how to get started. Cool. In the interest of time, I'm going to kind of skip through a few things so that we can get through this faster. But you can go into paperpal.com and simply you can browse the website and click on Get Started and sign up for an account. As I said, I'm going to skip this process since we're actually out of time. I've already signed in. So now let's really quickly go into, the product itself. So one of the things you can do when you sign up is you're asked whether, you want to import a document. Let's assume you've worked on a document. You can import that document, and what we will do, and here I've pulled up a paper that's already imported and sort of run. And we start with a way of, how can we help you improve it? So we've done a basic health check for this research article. And let's break it down. So we talked about grammar and language, plagiarism, AI detection. And we have a very comprehensive reference checks coming soon. I'll talk about that a little later. But let's take this one by one. So let's start with something that's very, very essential, that is grammar. Now, what you can do is simply click on View Edits, and you will see this sidebar open up. Just let me put this to the side. And what we essentially do is we offer you, ways to potentially improve the sentences one by one. So this is at a sentence level. Think about it as, potentially someone doing a proofread on your paper, just to ensure the language is tight and there aren't any inconsistencies. And it's pretty simple to incorporate these. You can click into a specific suggestion and accept or reject if you don't want to accept all of them, or you can simply accept all of them. Now, let's assume you have potentially a statement that has multiple edits and you want to consider maybe also exploring a different way of phrasing this, right? So you can try and see if, the AI can give you a deeper level of an edit as well, and you can try rewriting that. But again, it's all within your control. So you can choose to, for example, use this, try other modes and, kind of really move that forward. So what this is allowing you to do is It's telling you where potentially the language is weak, and it's allowing you to really make those changes within the document. Now, again, we talked a little bit about control, and we understand, a lot of authors have preferences in terms of, how much they want the AI to really come in and make edits versus, kind of have it a little bit more restricted. So I'll go into the settings, and here, as you can see, we have various editing modes. So what is on right now is our latest mode. This is the expert mode, which gives you the widest level of edits, the most edits, and, to kind of make as many changes as possible to improve the language. But let's assume you're fairly confident of the language, the tonality, but you just want to, look for really critical grammar and maybe readability suggestions, then you can switch the mode to essential, and it will kind of then tone down and kind of suggest fewer edits. Similarly, depending on the journal you're submitting to, or the style that you want to write in, you can also switch out the English option that you have out there. In addition to this, what we also offer is sometimes the AI, and again, the emphasis here a lot is on you have control. We don't automatically just accept everything, right? And you will see that in a lot of editors. You just say improve the writing, and it will pretty much just change it out here. But with research, we recognize that the author needs to have, that full control of it. So what we also recognize is sometimes, there might be cases where the AI might also potentially make some suggestions that you don't necessarily want. And, you could see these keep coming up. So let's take a term like high quality. Let's assume these are terms that you do not want to use the hyphenated term for whatever reason. So you'll see in certain cases, for certain types of edits, you can suppress or choose that, this edit shouldn't come up because you may have used this term multiple times through the document and you don't want to keep rejecting it each and every time. So these kind of personalization preferences also allow you to exert that level of control. Now, I do understand that this is a lot of edits, as you see, of 466 across 129 sentences. That could take time. I imagine you are wanting to do this on the way to work and not really, kind of do it live while you have an internet connection. We also offer a very handy feature where the edits that are offered can be downloaded with track changes. So what you can do is simply click on download with track changes, and what we'll do is take all of those 466 edits. It will download it in a Word file with track changes, and I'll show you a quick example of the file that I've downloaded earlier. Second, actually. So it's not open. I thought it was. So ignore the first part. That won't come up for this, but it would essentially give you all of the edits that are suggested as track changes. So again, let's assume you want to actually accept all. Sorry, not this one. But let's say you want to go into review. You can simply go in and say accept all changes, or you can again quickly accept yay or nay very quickly in an offline mode and make those edits. So this is the level, and these are things that the details that our users really like. And this helps you. Now, another thing that's pretty cool of what the grammar and the editing offers is what AI is able to pick out is something that even human editors really struggle with. It's checking for consistency, and consistency with the really, tiny things, right? So how many instances have you put a space before a percentage symbol or not? And again, you can simply select which one you want and then fix it. Or if you want to, kind of use a single space, and it'll fix these. So it's going to make 81 cases of fixes in one click. So that's how quickly you can probably fix those kind of issues without really spending hours and hours. And this is where AI can really, be it can work wonders, and it can do things for equations, and let's say variance, if how you've used a particular term. You could look at how you've kind of described tables, and there are a set of these things. And again, this reflects how we've seen editors actually edit documents and the kind of issues they found, and created a lot of these rule sets for our users to quickly incorporate into the document. So let's assume this is getting the language, the semantics, all of it within place. Then, as we said, one of the things that really comes up is what about the science? Or let's assume you want to actually look at just the language and structure, but at a macro level, right? What is the flow of the document? Are there redundancies in the document? Is it structured well? So under our checks feature, we have something called an AI review. And what it does is it gives you various angles at which you can actually explore the paper. So let's assume you just want to focus on still the language, but in terms of the flow, right? You can, kind of click on this and it will run a prompt and give you a response. Let's assume you want to check the scientific soundness of the document. So yeah, a good comparison would say, let's assume you wanted the AI to run a mock peer review, right, on your document. What could that look like? Or let's assume you had very custom feedback to ask for, like, hey, look at, the introduction section. And let's assume you've only written the introduction section. Do you think it's engaging enough and conveys the story about this, which is what I'm trying to say? And you can actually have the AI give you feedback on that. So you can make it as specific as you want or run with some of the preset prompts. And this is what it will potentially, kind of give you. I'm going to run the scientific soundness out right now. It'll take a few minutes. But what I want to also call out is this feedback is slightly detailed, and this is also, more advisory. It isn't very, very specific, like we saw the ethics sessions. So it is verbose in that sense. And it'll explain to you where certain, observations were made and what can be fixed. But this is something that you would possibly need to read and review and incorporate on your own, depending on where you feel, the feedback makes sense. So it's much like getting feedback from 3 to 4 people and then really choosing to see what is it that you want to incorporate. And given that this is, fairly long, we give you the option to save, so you can always come back to it and keep incorporating the feedback in bits and pieces. So this is something that really gets you there. Now, what we've realized is while the AI review feature is very flexible and it kind of gives a lot of structured feedback, we found that getting into the scientific soundness and the sort of mock peer review requires even more rigor based on feedback. So I'm going to kind of show you something really quickly, and this is a strict preview of something that is not live right now. But the reason I want to show you this is to really explain the kind of things that we are currently doing. So we call this a peer pilot research review report, and it actually analyzes the study, and this is an agentic workflow around 3 major areas. So it looks at a critical overview, a methodology and statistics review, and literature review. And then it kind of really breaks down each of these aspects in a very detailed way and will give you a score in terms of how does it think it is, and then, very, very specific feedback on what can be done. Now, this, as I said, is a feature that's still currently in our testing and preview. But at the end of the session, I will share my email. So if there are people in the audience would like to maybe volunteer a previous paper that you've published to try this out, or potentially even maybe a paper that you're working on, complete strict confidence, we're happy to share this report completely free of cost and kind of in return just get your feedback on it in terms of whether this is useful. And that would be really helpful to us and hopefully helpful to you as well. So as I said, this is how we look at really giving review. Sorry, yeah, on various aspects of the document, as we said. Now let's jump into the next thing, right? That is plagiarism. Now, we understand that most authors have access to plagiarism checkers via the institute, and you should use those because they check against published literature, a very comprehensive check. But very often, because folks are also using AI in the process of writing, we're seeing the incidence of inadvertent plagiarism actually on the rise. And therefore, what we offer within Paperpal is an internet-based plagiarism checker, which means checks over 99 billion web pages, over 200 million open access articles, and it will give you a similarity score. And it's very easy to read. It's a standard plagiarism report. I think that I've already loaded up here. You can see. Yeah, just load this one. This is sort of a already published doctor demo paper. So the plagiarism score is slightly higher than you would expect. But as I mentioned, it will potentially tell you exactly what statements were matched with what sources. As you said, this was the original paper that we created the demo document form. So you have about 133 statements that are closely matched. And then, it will allow you to kind of really just break that down one by one. You can also see all of the math sources here. If you want to download the report, that's also available as an option. So in case you need to share it with a colleague or with anyone else, you could do that very easily as well. The next thing, of course, that's been going in tandem with plagiarism is AI detection. Now, before I really head into the AI detection space, I do want to call out that AI detection is something that we thought really hard about before we launched into the product. Because we also recognize that the technology behind AI detection, AI detection creates a lot of anxiety, but the technology behind AI detection isn't foolproof. And why isn't it foolproof? Because essentially AI detectors look at the stylistic pattern of the writing. So it tries to look at how uniform it is and how predictable it is. And if it tends to be more uniform and predictable, then it assumes that it is probably more AI written because that's how AI tends to write. But if you look at the study of writing style, human writing style, it shows that humans are sort of wildly inconsistent with their writing, and that's how just looking at the style, it predicts whether a piece of writing could be AI. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is passing a judgment or a verdict on whether that statement was made or was sound, was it deeply researched, whether you spend hours writing it. And therefore, when you read an AI detection report, this is always my standard disclaimer. Um, it is simply to help you, read the text and understand, is there some way that I'd like to make it sound more like me, rather than really look at it as, an AI detection score that's going to get me into trouble. So if you look at, just click on see AI markers, this is what the detection report is. And at Paperpal, the way that we've looked at it again is less of a policing tool that maybe university or someone else might be looking at. We look at it more from the perspective of, as an author, if I had to understand that where does my writing sound more, let's say, robotic or more AI like, could I really change something? So you can see here we break it down into three categories. If it is extremely highly stylistically uniform, then we classify it as AI written. Most writing today will fall in this category because what we see is that most people who actually use AI responsibly, what they're doing is, yes, they're leaning on AI maybe to rewrite a sentence or to take something that AI has given but write it in their own words, and therefore you'll see a lot more of this human AI blend coming in. But even within this, you could very quickly scale down and see, okay, fine, is this statement something that I would say? You could read it out aloud, you could look through it and see if there are some edits you'd like to make in it. And this is how we pretty much break down the AI detection report that you can understand. And of course, then in this case, at about 67%, that is completely human written. So this is our approach at AI detection. As I said, it could have inaccuracies, and I do recommend and encourage people, if you do try it, and if you have feedback, do share it with us. We're in the process of actually launching an updated version of this model very soon. But whether you're using AI detection on Paperpal or anywhere else, we do get a lot of anxiety from authors. So please, definitely use it with discretion, would be my message. Okay. So moving back here, as I mentioned, one of the last pieces that we're going to be launching very soon is something called reference checks. And here what we are looking to do is basically extract and study the entire paper. We will extract all of the references and we will enrich it and verify it in terms of metadata. So we're going to tell you if something is potentially retracted. It's a lot of research that's getting retracted these days because a lot of AI slop that's coming in, and we'll help you identify that. We look at all of your references, plot it on a distribution range, and help you understand if a majority of your references are potentially older or probably more than what it should be. We look at various aspects like whether a particular reference has been included in the bibliography, but it's not cited anywhere within the paper. So these kind of issues could also be observed. Or potentially you have cited a paper that may not be in an index journal. So it may not be an index journal, so it's not listed in Scopus, the Web of Science, or any of these. So this is how we're hoping that authors can also ensure on the technical front that their references are in good order, and their science is really built on strong and good science. So that should be out within the next month. So just want to again give you a preview of what's coming up. This is constantly evolving, so I hope you find that useful. Now, the next thing that I want to show you, and a lot of these things, so grammar, plagiarism, AI detection, let's say references, these checks could be relevant to a manuscript, they could be relevant to a class paper, they could be relevant to a research proposal, anything that requires writing in a more academic or professional form that's cited and grounded in strong sources. But now, let's assume we're working on a manuscript itself, right? And we talked about how journal requirements can be extremely varied and problematic, and there are hundreds of them, right? So what we offer within Paperpal, if I go back into my dashboard, show you that, is this is my dashboard, and I can quickly go down onto the left, and you will find something called a submission check. So this is nothing but a journal submission check. Now, this is, or a version of this, as I mentioned, is what we offer along with journals, with our partner journals, where what we do is we scan the manuscript across all of these areas. So we look at, again, language, we look at structure, counts, figures and tables, have they been cited correctly? Do they have legends? Are all the disclosures in place? Is the metadata in place? Is the abstract within a certain length that's typically required? So think of it as the best practices when you're submitting to a journal. Now, this is what we basically run on the manuscript. Now, this is a good check to run, probably just before submission, towards the end, to make sure that everything is in order. Now, once you kind of upload your manuscript, and here you can upload either a Word or a PDF file, and we will give you a report that you can download. So it is a downloadable report. It typically takes about 5 minutes. I've already run this, and I will show it to you. Yeah, so sorry about that. So as you can see over here, it's called the Paperpal Pre-Flight for Authors. And what it does is it gives you a summary upfront in terms of, you're missing author contribution statement, you're missing the author list. There's a conflict of interest statement that's missing, the correspondence of the author's email. And if you click on it, it will actually, kind of tell you where these things are missing. So again, here it looks like there are citations in the abstract which are not recommended. So even these are the kind of issues that will be flagged off. This is, there you go. It's added a sample template of where you could mention the corresponding author and their details. This is inserted by us, as you can see. So this is inserted by Paperpal. And even for the statements, we will put template statements that you can potentially revise. In addition to this, all of the language suggestions that I mentioned earlier, those are also incorporated, and you can simply accept, reject, and incorporate these. Now, this basically, you can go through the entire report, ensures that everything that you need to do before you get to the journal desk is done. Now, at the current stage, we don't do journal-specific checks. So, for example, if journal A requires you to have an abstract length of 150 words and journal B is okay with 200 words, currently, we don't do journal-specific checks. We're hoping to head in that direction. We have some early successes in trying to do that. But given the number of journals and the requirements being so varied, we're taking a little bit more time, but that's some place that we'd like to head. But broadly, if you look at the reviews and the requests that come in from here, this is great to, just ensure everything in your paper is in order. And again, full control where you can accept and reject all of these suggestions to incorporate into your document. And again, this is available as a downloadable report. So if you want to share it with your co-authors, becomes very, very easy to do that and collaborate with them. So one thing that I want to take at this point and sort of really quickly point out is that as researchers, one of the most painful things is also you have to spend a lot of time formatting documents, putting it in a particular font, spacing, getting it into a single column, double column, all of those formats. And then eventually, if you're going to take it and put it into ChatGPT, Paperpal, or any web tool, well, nobody can do a formatting job as good as Microsoft Word. So what we have is you can actually also load up Paperpal in Microsoft Word. So here I have a double column paper from the Lancet. And what you can do is you can actually just go into insert and go in here. So I found it. Okay. Keep changing the place for this. Okay. The easier way to do this is maybe you just go over to Paperpal, and if you head out to the left menu, you can see the Paperpal app, the MS Word add-in. And if you click on this, you can just get it from the App Source store. So you just click on this link. It will download and install into your Microsoft Word. It does need an internet connection to run, although it works directly in your local online Word. And what happens is you just open it up from here. And what it will do is, let's assume you want to, sort of incorporate some of those editing suggestions or the rewrite suggestions or the consistency suggestions after you've done your formatting and all of that. Don't know why this is breaking. Just yeah. Zoom out. Clearly done something here. Okay. Yeah, I think clicked on something. So what it will allow you to do is essentially accept those changes right within Word without really, kind of moving things around. So you can simply select, accept. It's going to keep everything intact. And one thing to also call out is we place a lot of emphasis in terms of when there are, citations. We ensure that, we're not making changes if there are proper nouns. A lot of these kind of changes, we're very strict about ensuring that, these guidelines are followed. So especially at the stage where your document is in full format and in place, you can use the Paperpal for Word add-in. But note that most of the features, practically all of them, are available within, they're available within Microsoft Word. So even if you're the kind of person who feels like, Microsoft Word is my writing space, and this is where I think best. So let's assume you're in a blank document. You can also use Paperpal at that stage. Get started with your outline and, kind of use it right in here, right from the get-go. So it supports it at all stages. Just sharing this instance. So let's assume you have, an outline that you want to get started. You can simply choose your article, give your instructions, get your outline going, and get moving from here. So all of these features are available. It's just that, again, depending on your preference, you can choose to use it how you want. I want to show you a few features really quickly that you might find useful, while you're maybe a slightly earlier stage. Here we looked at, when you're towards the end, you have a full draft. But let's assume you are actually using Paperpal, at the stage where you're putting together a particular section. One of the things that our users find particularly helpful, and especially if I think about, anyone who wants to put their ideas down, the zero draft down, not really think of the language, the structure, the flow, but really just put their thoughts down and then think about polishing the language and the flow later. So let's assume you have a sentence in here that I've written out, and it's just a couple of sample sentences where it's written in a pretty casual manner. It has the citations. So I put these probably as I was reading, the paper or going through a couple of pieces, but they don't necessarily, read well in an academic tone. So what you can do is you can quickly just select the text. You can use Paperpal AI, and you can choose to paraphrase it. If you're someone who prefers to, as I said, maybe use it in a very assistive way, just as inputs. You can also use it from the right-hand side. But again, you can click on rewrite. Let's say you want to paraphrase it. And this is my preferred mode of working because I always need a high level of control over what the AI gives and incorporate in my own words. But what this does is it generates the output on the right side. So if you think of it, it's almost like a split screen view. You can either replace it, you could copy it and place it below, however you're comfortable working with it. But you can actually now see what it's given you and incorporate the changes that you want and however you want. Let's assume you want to maybe, you want something slightly more formal. This is polished up the language, but it's not made it as formal. You could choose make academic. And you could see the version it gives you, or you could just try for something that's slightly fluent, but not so formal, and you could swap that out as well. So this is a great way as you're in the writing process, where you can also, look at various versions, incorporate how you want, and again, choose the format of working, right, in whatever way suits you best. So I'll just quickly show you how this works in line. So I can paraphrase and go, yep. So you see it's retained the citations. This allows me to quickly do this in line. I can read it in a top bottom format and I can quickly incorporate it as I need. So there you have it. So this is how we look at it. Again, what we see is equally important is the ability to use the AI and not just the outputs. So that's something that we give equal weightage to. Another thing that's really useful is, very often you've written your narrative and somewhere you've gotten stuck and you're like, okay, I've actually forgotten where I potentially, got the statement form and I want to cite it. Again, this is something that's very handy features. You can simply select the text, click on cite here, or head over to the right where we have research and cite, and you can click on cite text. So it's selecting that statement. And now what it does is Paperpal has a repository of over 250 million scholarly publications. Now this includes open access papers as well as paywall papers. But of course, we have access to the metadata, the title, the abstract, not necessarily the full text. But using this, we will try and find you relevant papers that potentially match up to the statement that you can consider reviewing as papers to cite. And very quickly, it will, sort of give you a set of suggestions. Maybe a few seconds. Yeah, and then you could, simply save it to your library if you want to consider it. You could cite it right away if you want. You can choose the format that you want. So let's say on an APA, insert the citation, and there you have it. What it will also beautifully do is also generate the bibliography entry for you. So it also sort of doubles up as a reference manager. And that's something that we're sort of trying to make more progress on. We have a few more features like the ability to group or import citations that are coming in over the next few weeks. But this allows you, as I said, just really quickly doing this, but it will allow you to quickly generate a bibliography. And even at a later stage, let's assume you want to change that out. Chicago author date. It's going to swap the format out and let you do that. So let's select IEEE just for reference. Again, let's put it in the order reference and change that out for you. So this is how we're talking about, Paperpal helps you throughout the process. I just want to give you a sneak preview, not really get into the details. You can also use features like translation. So let's assume you're someone who's comfortable writing, in the language that works for you. You can do that. Use Paperpal to translate, and you can select from over 50 languages, and then it works either ways, and you can generate it and incorporate it as you want. So translation is also something that we offer within. And again, all of these things, technically are possible with a bunch of different tools, but we recognize that in the process of writing, you don't want to have to, move between 30 tools to do this. And that's what we've also attempted to, kind of recreate an experience that, helps you be more productive. The last thing that I'd like to quickly show you is the ability to, be pretty flexible with writing. So let's assume you want to select this text that you've written and you want to explore, what angles you could take from here on. You could select from any of these options, type whatever instructions you want. You could say keep writing, and the AI would give you suggestions on what you potentially could write next. So you could insert this, ignore this, however you want. Now let's assume I want to actually just take all of this text, selected text, and say, suggest a transitioning statement between two paragraphs, right? And you can put these instructions again in Spanish and Portuguese. I've put it in English, but the AI will understand the instructions in whatever language you put it in. So if that's easier, go ahead and it will give you the output in the way you want. So if the text is already written in English, it'll give you output in English. If you ask a question of, hey, just tell me, 5 things that I should keep in mind while writing, a good introduction, and say you write that in Spanish, it'll give you the response back in Spanish. So it's pretty context sensitive in that regard. The last thing that I want to just leave you with, and I know we're running short of time, so I'm going to quickly move over to that, is our templates feature. And here, I won't really get into the demo part of it, but something that might be handy if you're actually working on a research paper is you can actually, we have some sort of pre-formatted, sorry about that. Yeah, templates that are there that can help you. You're typically putting the title or polishing up the title or writing the abstract towards the end. So once you have your paper ready, you can actually just go in here and there you go, manuscript section templates, and you could generate some good options to consider. There are also some templates in there, like a plain language summary. So let's say your paper is published, have to submit a plain language summary. We can generate one for you. So again, a lot of this you can incorporate as you need. We recommend that you don't use the outputs as is, but lean on it for guidance. And it's the same with abstract and keywords or anything that you need, study highlights to submit to the journal. The most important thing, as I said, is AI disclosure. If you are using AI, if you are using Paperpal, we always recommend you lean on the side of disclosure because, again, journals do not frown upon the use of AI. They're pretty transparent with how you can use AI. But let's assume it looks like the text is slightly AI written. That might not be grounds for rejection. But let's assume you've not disclosed it. Then that sort of creates like, okay, why is someone hiding it? And is there a reason? So then that sort of starts to create as an environment of distrust. And that's what you want to avoid. So what we also offer is you can actually select the publisher journal, and we will also give you a link back into their guidelines. So you can also review it. But we've also sort of pretty much curated the kind of the statements that they recommend you use, and to look at where they recommend you to put it, you can actually check their disclosure policy. So yeah, I think that pretty much brings me to the end of, as I said, the demo part of it. Really quickly, as I mentioned, there are other features, but in the interest of time, I can't cover all of them today. You can scan this link, and I will also share this link on email after the session, where you can watch the entire demo if you want it. This is the offer. It's an activation code. Once you sign up, you can go into your account and enter this in. It will give you 7-day full access, or you can again just scan it and go there directly. We will share this on email again with you. So you can actually try this out. And if you'd like to test out our new peer review feature, or if you have questions or you have feedback, that's my email address. Do feel free to leave in your thoughts and questions. That's it. Back to you. Yeah, but 35 minutes, but I recognize that we're over time today. So
no problem,
sorry.
no problem, Nolita. Thank you very much for sharing this insightful presentation. Now I'm going to share. I'm going to share the Q&A. I'm going to ask my colleagues to share the Q&A link here. Please, João. Just a second. I would like to start with one question that is that highlighted in the several questions that we receive in the meanwhile. Do you see Paperpal becoming part of the editorial workflow in the pre-screening stage before the peer review? And if so, what safeguards should be in place?
So Paperpal actually is already part, and we work with a lot of publishers and journals as part of their editorial workflow. So as I mentioned, Paperpal Pre-Flight is another arm of Paperpal. that potentially uses a lot of this technology and partners with journals. So the way that we work with them is, as we mentioned, as an author with our partner journals, prior to actually submitting your document, authors can self-review their submission against the journal requirements, the submission check report that I showcased. But there we actually work with the journal to have them configure their requirements within that pre-flight check. So you can have a journal specific check, so to say, and their thresholds, say for language errors or things like that, right? Some are pretty lenient depending on the field of study. It will kind of, highlight that. So then again, the author is sure that, I'm in a good place before submitting. So that's more of our author facing come journal partnership that we have. We also have pre-flight for editorial, workflows where we are integrated with manuscript submission systems as well as directly with journals, where they have a different interface where they can screen papers. And this is again beyond just the things that we talked about. I think the things that journals are grappling with are challenges like, and the reason I'm sharing this because I understand many researchers also double up as editorial officers, but what we help them do is, there's a lot of AI slop that's also permeating paper mills. So we offer them integrity checks that can help them weed out potentially problematic papers. Because again, it's important to safeguard the scientific repository, and that's something that we do. The peer review report that you looked at, we're again also testing that with journals to see if that could, again, not replace peer review, but can it help a peer reviewer just maybe, refer to that and then kind of also then do the peer reviews to just speed up the process. So these are ways we can aid, various challenges that are facing academia right now.
I have another question here that our attendees put, and it's very, very interesting. Can Paperpal assist or help recommending us with addressing the reviewers' revision comments?
Yes. So I didn't actually cover it today, but there's a very interesting use case that you can try. We have something that's called a chat PDF feature. So what you can do is, very quickly, and I don't have a sample chat ready, but let me see if I can share that with you.
You may share.
So if you go to Paperpal, and this is sort of like an interesting workaround, but let's assume, you have the peer review comments that you've got in a Word file. You can PDF it up and take your original manuscript that you submitted, upload both of them. And I'm just going to maybe take, okay, let's just take this one. Okay, I think this is just one paper, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, it's not. It's a great example. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to have this, but maybe, I can share something later. But what you can actually do is that, it works wherein it will ground all of the responses. So you can, kind of say that based on this question, how can I address it and things like that. And you can actually then use it to have the peer reviewer feedback. And let's say you've gotten feedback, maybe different files from 3 different peer reviewers, you can upload all of them and kind of work through it with your original manuscript. And of course, as I said, you can use any of the other features in Paperpal at the same time to keep improving. So you can try that out.
Okay. Last question, Nolita. In the sake of disclosure, I'm not a Paperpal user, as you know, yet. Just to say to the audience, not because it was not necessary, but because I wanted to understand at the same time that the audience what is Paperpal and how can Paperpal help us to enhance our efficiency in this AE era. We saw that Paperpal is a evolving ecosystem more and more.
Yes.
And therefore, within this complexity, I capture the guideline to disclosure always what is the tools that we are using in terms of generative AI, how generative AI is influencing the science and research, and how easily our research can be mistaken by AI-generated research. So in that sense, how can Paperpal help us to humanize, that is a word that we are using today, humanize our ideas and the questions that surge when we are doing the research. Thank you.
I think that's a great question, and I don't think there's a single webinar or a seminar that I've done where that question hasn't come up. So yeah. So I think first off, disclaimers, I would strongly recommend, be very wary of using humanizers, tools that humanize. We've also considered building one, but we're trying to figure out our head how to do it. But I'll tell you what humanizers do. So most humanizers, and you go to Google and you'd search for, free AI humanizers. What it's doing is it's taking AI text, and what it's trying to do is it's trying to simplify it. Because as I said, AI detectors tend to look for stylistic patterns in writing. So it tries to make the writing slightly inconsistent. It tries to make it sound like, if let's assume it was in an academic tone, maybe someone of a college student wrote it and things like that. It tries and swaps out certain words, kind of bring in some inconsistencies. Now, yes, you might beat the AI detector, but you've also probably introduced grave errors into your document. Now, I'll give you an example. We looked at a paper that was retracted, and this was by a researcher at Google. And what was the reason for retraction? So he probably used a humanizer. The science was good. Everything was good. The reason it was retracted, because by using a humanizer, what it did is the humanizer changed something like mean square error, which is a standard term, into mean square blunder. And it did this across the document, right? And somehow this even skipped whatever guardrails there were there in the editorial process, because the science was good, but eventually the paper was retracted. So if you are also using humanizers and not being careful of, where the humanizer is changing certain things, you might also just end up in trouble. So the best way, honestly, in my opinion, quickly 2 or 3 tips. I think always start with your own words. So think first, maybe put down your structure. If you're also giving the AI to help you with an outline, right? We offer authors the way to kind of feed it your notes. So we did a great webinar with, someone recently who talked about, if you use our chat PDF tool, let's say to actually read research papers, you can actually open up a document on the side. So as you're reading, and maybe you're using the chat to actually interact with multiple papers to say, okay, what do these 3 papers have to say about, the impact of climate, say, on tourism in Barcelona? So, it'll give you an answer, but the things that you really want to take away for your writing, you write those in your words. You kind of can cite them, but if you write them, then you use those notes, right? When you're going in to frame your paragraph back into your writing. So what happens is that your thoughts, your fingerprints, your subconscious narrative is actually going to the AI. Now, let's assume you've used AI through the process and some parts are still coming out strongly AI. What you can also do is just read it out aloud to yourself. When you do that, sometimes you're thinking, does this sound like me? Does this sound like something Karimo would say? And very often, and this was a tip I received actually from one of our customers, when they read it out, it was very easy for the brain to spot that and said, that doesn't really sound like me. And then you exactly know where to really go ahead and change it. So I would say, honestly, there is no easy way. I would love to click a button and say, hey, we can humanize things for you, but it's probably more error prone. So there are a lot of these tips and tricks that I would recommend that, you use in your process, but ensure you're always using it instead, right? With AI. So yeah.
Yes. This is a question that I have to make. This is really the last one, but it is about accuracy. Our colleague José Monteiro addressed this question. That's about the suggestion for authors provided by AI. How accurate is it? What is the accuracy percentage, if you can disclose?
So I think, again, it depends on what sort of feature you're using and, where are you using it. So for example, one of the things that I showed you in Paperpal is the research and cite feature, right? Now in the research and cite feature, all the responses are based in the papers that we have in our database that's also scrubbed off retracted papers. So in terms of accuracy, in terms of outputs, like say having hallucinated, instances or responses, that is extremely low to none. But the minute it kind of, goes into, say you go into the right feature or some of these places, right? You might ask an open-ended question. Here, the model might give you some responses from memory. One of the things that we're bringing in is web search. source of more current information. Now here we're also going to try and give you the sources. This is where you need to verify accuracy. Some things that can also happen, while you said accuracy, but it's something that I want to call out. It's not always just about accuracy of the information in terms of what the AI said, but it's about how the AI said it. So for example, it could take a statement and just make it a lot more compelling. So, maybe the study predicts that this can happen or could happen versus this will happen, right? It might swap out terms that might actually change meaning. So these are things that you should possibly also look out for, right? Like when paraphrasing, these are very subtle things around accuracy and hallucinations that might creep in, that you might want to be careful about. And the last thing, of course, is, even though the information might really just, come in from grounded sources, real sources, not hallucinated or made up, right? But the fact is that, it might skip some papers, it might overlook some literature. So ensuring that eventually you are still following, a very thorough, wide review of the literature when it comes to making a claim, I think that's important. And that's where, I didn't showcase it, but we have the research Q&A feature. The more you kind of can stress test a lot of your arguments and, keep kind of looking up papers and asking questions from different angles and being more critical, you'll get to a point of accuracy. So I think my answer is that real accuracy will come with when you recognize that AI is there, but AI could go wrong in these ways. And you kind of, keep stress testing or pushing it right to its boundary and ensuring things are there. So you'll get the best accuracy when the human works with the AI. That's my take on it.
So thank you very much, Nolita, for this very insightful presentation and seminar. I will for sure try and use heavily Paperpal to polish my academic writing. That's for sure. Thank you very much on behalf of TMCT organization. Now I'm going to share with all of you the link for the certificate. It's going to be open in the next 10 minutes. Once again, thank you very much to you all. Thank you very much, Nolita, for having us, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Karimo, and thanks to the rest of the TMCT team. It's been great being here.
Thank you.